I actually just promised Ron that I'd say just a few things about this piece before I play it, because it's not that common, I don't think. I actually just discovered on the back of one of these Faber editions that we just have this particular piece listed, and I thought I'd have a listen to it. And I just really enjoyed it. There aren't that many recordings of it around, but it's just really intriguing, and it just appeals to me because he's an English composer called Nicholas Maw. I think he died in 2009 or somewhere around then. And he just, he'd been very involved in the whole 20th century, serial music, etc. But really wanted to find a bridge back to, Romanticism, without abandoning all the intelligence that had been sort of gathered, over the last, 100 years. So I just think it's really curious to just, listen to music or try and play some music that's experimental, but also he would always say that music needs to be able to sing. If it can't sing, it was impossible for him to really get a handle on. So I was just captivated by it. So I sprung this on Ron actually. I said, "Can we do this?"
Well, he had that other intriguing piece. What was it from memory? What was that one that he wrote? It's 28 minutes. Huh?
Yes, which is like a 28-minute monster, which I can't imagine that.
That's right, I remember hearing that somewhere years ago. But an amazing piece of music.
Amazing piece of music. I think he might have written the longest continuous piece of orchestral music ever.
I think he wrote it for Marcy Dillion.
Ah, yes, yeah.
It just got me, I just got intrigued by this fellow. I knew nothing about him before hearing this piece, so it was a nice little bit of discovery. So, and I'll just say this too, there are 4 little movements, and they're quite short, and it begins with what he calls a reflection, which is a little bit like staring into a pond, for a while. And then it moves into what he calls simply a song, so sort of, I guess that's, honouring his love of melody and things. And then it moves into what he calls a winter landscape, so it's just a very sort of descriptive or evocative piece, and it ends with what he calls a stamping dance, which brings more of his interest in modernism back into play, I think. So give it a go.
So much going on, hey? And each one of these pieces full of, you know, such different different ideas, and you know they're incredibly short, but you have to switch, you know, switch brains every time. Do you mind? Should we start from the last one and work our way back?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
So you know, my only. This one being the obviously it's a dancer. It's the most rhythmic of all of these. Like my previous comments, I would find your sort of your limit speed wise. You know, in whatever the hardest moment is, and use that. Whatever moment it is, use that as your sort of go-to speed. There's nothing worse as a player to feel like you know you can't quite play it that fast, but you're forcing yourself, and you know, I mean, that, when you're preparing for a performance, it's such a good headspace to get into. This is going to be the top speed. Everything else sits back.
Yeah.
And then you can create all the energy that you need.
Yes.
Around that.
Yeah.
And it'll still sound like a stamping dance, you know. So, I mean, obviously these, these fast sort of scale runs feel like they're, the most challenging. How do you? Well, sorry. The other thing I wanted to say: each one of the notes in these scale runs they have a staccato dot above them, meaning let's make them as short as possible. However, the guitar's already a very, the articulation is so fast and it's so dead compared to other instruments in terms of sustain and resonance. I wouldn't go as far as playing them all staccato, but I would basically, tell yourself that it doesn't need to be legato.
Right.
If you do that,
yeah.
So rather than feeling like you have to cut them off even more, just as long as they're as long as there's some disconnection and you're not trying to go for as smooth a line as possible, that's going to be a great effect. Yeah. I wouldn't try to do more than that, and especially in context of what we've all heard leading up to it, it's going to be sort of starkly different.
Yeah. In fact, it's something I could never conceptually quite understand how this just almost crashes into the other three pieces, but it's organised as a
set of fours.
Yep. So maybe that's intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and each one is just a completely different sound world. With all four, you get a great sense of what's possible on the guitar. And so obviously in this one, it's the hard, edgy, disconnected sounds that are that sound so great on the instrument. So just can we do that as a little sort of test? Can you play maybe from this line here? Well, let's. I mean, if you don't mind working through this with everyone here, do a relaxed version, and then push it up to a speed. And let's have a chat about what speed you feel could be, for right now, not in a few months' time or whatever, but right now, what's comfortable. It's awesome. So basically, there's nothing faster than that in the piece, and that's like the sort of, it's incredibly driving already.
Yeah. So it's got the momentum. It doesn't have to be fast.
No.
It just needs that energy.
It has that momentum, absolutely. And obviously, as you get familiar with it, at a later point you might think, well, actually I can, you can push it a bit more, and that'll be fine. And the piece will evolve that way. But certainly for now, for performance, I think that's absolutely more than fine. So with that in mind, so you want to just play from the top and see what that main kind of theme sounds like at that slower speed. So it'll be and with those accents, you can really get it to rock, a lot more.
Yeah.
It gives you a bit more time for. There's a bar here. The third bar goes from a piano to a fortissimo. There's a crescendo across five notes. Dum dum dum. That's pretty incredibly drastic and subtle when you think about it. Having more time to bring all that stuff out
Would be better.
would be amazing.
Yeah.
And again, look, you probably already imagine if an audience is hearing that for the first time. After what we've heard leading up to it, it's going to be incredibly exciting. So look, I think with that one, this one's actually musically, technically, it's possibly the hardest in terms of what you need to kind of bring to it bass-wise, but musically, it's the easiest. As long as it's really driving and you're, I don't want to say play all of the accents as they're marked, but basically by seeing that, you know what the
feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you do that, and you make the dynamic variations really clear, that's it. You don't have to think about anything else in this piece. It's that plays itself, and there are no more kind of musical puzzles to solve. Whereas in the previous movements, which are so much more lyrical, that there are difficulties there that are just they're harder. You need to spend more time figuring out how does this actually work. So in the Winter Landscape, which was the previous movement, one thing that jumped out straight away was the rhythmically, and this is really hard. It's a really hard.
It's the duple triple.
Yeah. So it's in. There's a triplet pattern in the bottom. It's stopping and starting all the time, but in general the bass line is two triplet, but the time is in crotchet. So 1 and 2 and 4 and 1. So I'm just playing the bottom line. 2, 3, 1, 1. And on the top you've got 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 1. I'm going to try to put it together. Now, putting this together is really tricky. So you've got 2 quavers on top, triplets on the bottom. It comes in a, yeah, that's it, yeah. To have that flowing throughout is really difficult. You know, and so in this piece, obviously, that's the kind of, you know, that's the key to unlocking the whole atmosphere.
Yes.
You know, and that. So yeah, with your top line was very much aligned with the triplets.
Yes. I sort of consciously in a way, because I kept moments like that, tried to bring that out, tried to bring this out, you know, wherever it's, but, you know, take your point, bring all of it out to, you know.
Well, and I guess that's because it's so unusual. You know, this is one of those moments on guitar. It's much easier on the piano and other instruments, but on the guitar, this is playing you know, duplets over triplets is one of the hardest things to do. And to do that, you know, musically as well.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, obviously there's a misalignment that keeps on happening.
Yeah.
So it's actually feeling that pulse.
Yeah.
3 and 4 and
which is really emphasised at the end, where it actually breaks those two up.
It breaks them up. That one's a bit slow. That's a bit. That one's a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And it's also very hard to read because of that. You know.
Yeah.
You don't. It's taken. You take it for granted that that's what's happening straight away. But then occasionally, you'll have a few lower notes, for example. Well, that's a bit of a cadenza, but you'll have a few lower notes that are played as duplets.
Yeah.
But actually, in general, in this piece, it's pretty good. It's basically anything with a stem down outside of the cadenza. Oh, except for here. That's not a triplet.
That's just a slide.
Slowing it down. Yep. Doing all that at that stage. And you know, again, with this piece, you know, at the end you've got 3 triple pianissimo, that whole last section goes from pianissimo to 3 pianos. Previous section is all piano. In the little cadenza moment, you have a mezzo forte and a piano. And the previous section doesn't go above a piano as well. So, you know, the first line of the cadenza is the strongest.
Yeah. Oh, it's the forte there.
Oh, there's the forte.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, and here we have crescendo from piano to crescendo to a forte, and that leads us into the cadenza. Apart from that, the piece is very, very gentle.
Yeah.
And again, just sort of thinking about, you know, how to approach it. To me, it becomes this sort of, well, it's the one dynamic, very lyrical melody in duplets. The bass line is in triplets. So it's, you know, if you can sort of gently bubble away and make sure that rhythmic relationship is happening, again,
that's
idea.
it.
That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I mean, playing music like this is incredibly satisfying because you don't actually need to do anything more dynamically.
Yeah.
You know, the composer's intentions are so clear. You can exaggerate things, of course. So, you know, this could easily be a forte.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, you could start pianissimo instead of piano, for example. Those things can be exaggerated, but you don't have to make anything else. You don't have to worry about anything else. You can just sort of stick to it. So here, I would definitely say, you know, as legato on top as possible. So that top line is incredibly important to connect.
Yeah.
Just have a look. Yes, no rests. No rest at all.
Except for the very last.
Sorry, in the top line.
Oh, right.
So
It's a
all
little joint.
the rests are in the bottom. So in the bottom, and the top is just without, you know, if that was played on 2 different, it's all, you know, it's a fun thing to imagine how would this sound on. You can imagine left hand on the piano playing just the bass, and then, you know, an oboe or a clarinet playing that melody, and basically the only time that instrument would breathe, the only time there'd be a gap is when it would make sense to breathe.
Yeah. Yes.
Everything else would be, you know, as connected as legato as possible.
Yeah. Which is telling us to
all of it.
Yeah. It's giant.
The huge sort of long phrasing marks over the top of
whole lines.
Oh, absolutely, 3-4 bars at a time. So very, very connected.
Yeah. But I really like. I think when I first started doing this, I was really dwelling on that duple, triple thing, and I think as I've played it, I've just let it be emphasised occasionally.
Right.
But actually, it's, you know, it probably is just more to the point to actually really emphasise that idea.
I think, yeah. For
Yeah.
me personally, I would, you know, when you've got 4 pieces that are so short, so kind of, they're all a little bit confronting.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing that's sort of safe or comfortable. To, you know, to a regular audience isn't expecting to hear, you know, these harmonies that are so jarring and at the same time it's incredibly lyrical, of course. But when you have these short, very contrasting pieces with very really specific ideas,
Bring them out.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And you kind of, you know, if you don't do that in this one, you're missing such a key moment in the progression between these, you know, between these movements.
Slide. We have to go on to the next one.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
It's been about 2 hours.
I know.
Thank you very
Very
much.
beautiful.